Good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Hill. We'll get to the storm in just a few minutes. First, though, that deadly Portland fire sparked just after 7 o'clock this morning. Firefighters remain at Noyes Street near the intersection of Forest Avenue, investigating and putting out hot spots. News Center's Sarah DeLage has been at the scene since this morning. She joins us now where the latest press conference wrapped up about an hour ago. Sarah, what can you tell us?
Well, Amanda, firefighters are still at the scene. They've been here all day, and it is only the beginning. They still don't know where the fire started or what caused it, and they have not been able to positively identify those 5 people who were killed. 7 people were able to escape from the fire. 2 of those people were taken to local hospitals with injuries. 1 of them was transported to Boston with severe burns, but Portland's fire chief today vowing to work tirelessly to bring closure to all of the families affected. Firefighters responded to the call just after 7 o'clock this morning. When they arrived, the house was fully engulfed in flames. They have been working to get the fire under control all day. They've only just recently been able to get into the building to start investigating. Chief Jerome Lemoria stresses the investigation is in the very early stages, calling the fire an enormous tragedy for the community.
We're doing all we can to bring closure to families. We're doing all our can to bring this investigation to a close.
Now, the fire marshal's office is leading this investigation with assistance from the Portland Fire Department and the Portland Police Department. Chief Lemoria says they will be looking into whether there were any code violations in the building. Now, this building typically houses University of Southern Maine students, but right now, because they have not been able to positively identify any of the victims, they cannot tell us whether any of them are University of Southern Maine students. Now, obviously, this fire and this tragedy has had a devastating effect on the entire community, and particularly this neighborhood on Noyes Street. And for more on that now, we bring in News Center's Danielle Waugh. Danielle.
Well, Sarah, people that we spoke with are describing this fire as explosive and fast moving. At least one man in the area actually ran toward this burning building, trying to help the people inside before firefighters could make it.
A loss for words in terms of how fast this fire erupted. I mean, it was like an explosion. Like I said, I heard a couple pops, and this house within 10 minutes was engulfed with flames.
Neighbor Carol Schiller says the sound woke her up Saturday morning. She looked outside to see this home on fire and to see a neighbor try and escape.
The porch of Noyes Street property over here was totally engulfed with like an orange blaze, and I saw a young man jump off the porch. He was totally engulfed with flames. He was rolling on the ground.
People nearby rushed over to help before the fire department could make it.
He was severely burned on a large portion of his body. He was pretty badly hurt. It's best, I didn't know at the time that supposedly he had jumped out of a window to get away from the fire. His clothes were severely burnt, and unfortunately, he was still smoking.
He says he didn't see anyone else make it out of the burning building, and he wishes he could have done more.
I really pray for that man's family and everybody who's lost somebody here, the neighbors who are going to feel, they're going to feel this for a while, and I'll certainly feel it for a long time, knowing that had I just gotten up those stairs, there's a chance I could have helped somebody.
An entire neighborhood shaken as they wait to learn what caused this destruction.
It's devastating. It's just devastating.
Set up a family assistance center at USM's Woodbury campus center to support those impacted by this fire. It will be open until 10 o'clock tonight and reopen at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Amanda.
All right, Danielle Waugh and Sarah DeLage live from Portland. Thank you. Now to recap, here's what we know about the fire on Noyes Street. Crews were called to the scene around 7:15 this morning. 5 deaths have been confirmed. 1 person was critically injured and brought to a burn center in Boston. Firefighters are still on the scene, and there are still people unaccounted for. Now, of course, this is the deadliest fire in the city of Portland in 22 years. In December of 1992, a baby and 3 adults were killed in a fire in the Munjoy Hill section of the city. That fire was set by Virgil Smith, a dishwasher at a local fast food restaurant. He was angry at his girlfriend because they'd recently broken up. Smith was sentenced to 58 years in prison. Now, in terms of deadly fires, the worst in the city's history was in 1963, more than 50 years ago, at Gilman Place, which is located behind the parking garage near Maine Medical Center. 6 children died in that fire.
He was here when he was alive last.
David Bragdon Sr. can only assume this is where his son, David Bragdon Jr., died Saturday morning. He came to his apartment at 20 Noyes Street looking for answers.
First of all, is it true? Is it real? You know, it's hard not knowing 100%. What's the cause? You know, were the smoke detectors working? I don't think so. Did the landlord do what he needed to do to make sure something like this would never happen? I doubt it.
Fire officials are inspecting the building for possible code violations and investigating the cause. As the medical examiner works to identify all 5 victims, friends and family can only wait.
I would say they're going to hell.
And that's part of what our prayers are with them and with the rest of them.
They're praying for people like David Bragdon Sr., parents numb from their pain.
You're not supposed to have them go before you. They're supposed to take care of you when you get old. I wished I was here for them.
In Portland, Danielle Waugh, News Center.
Officials have only described the 5 victims as young people. The man who was severely burned has been identified as 29-year-old Stephen Summers of Rockland, who was visiting friends at the house Friday night.
The medical examiner has released the names of the people killed in the fire. News Center's Caroline Cornish joins us now with the latest. Caroline?
Pat and Cindy, officials say that all 5 victims of this fire died of smoke inhalation. 27-year-old David Bragdon Jr. and 29-year-old Ashley Thomas lived in this building. Also killed were 25-year-old Christopher Conley of Portland and 26-year-old Melisha Jackson of Topsom. The medical examiner is still confirming the identity of the 5th person who was killed, but she's believed to be 26-year-old Nicole Finlay. She was a tenant in the building. 29-year-old Stephen Summers of Rockland is being treated for severe burns at Mass General Hospital in Boston. Obviously, this fire has had a huge impact on this community, particularly on the people who witnessed the fire themselves. And News Center's Chris Rose joins me now with that part of the story. Chris?
Well, Caroline, those people have some images and memories they say they just can't shake, and they're not sure if they'll ever be able to get them out of their minds.
Very, very beyond lucky. I had one angel looking over me that day at least.
Kyle Bozeman is one of the 7 people who escaped the burning building Saturday morning. He says he went to bed about 3 a.m. and was in a deep sleep when his housemate Nate Long shook him awake.
I was sleeping hard and he saved my life.
Bozeman crawled out his 2nd floor window, then yelled back in the flame and smoke-filled house.
And I yelled inside. I was like, "Hey, fire!" And I heard like 2 yells. And I kept on yelling back inside, and then I didn't hear any more yelling, but I still stood there for like another minute and 2.
Bozeman says the heat became so intense he had to jump to the ground.
With the death of Stephen Summers yesterday, Saturday's fire on Noyes Street in Portland has become the deadliest in the state in 40 years. Summers died at Massachusetts General Hospital after suffering severe burns.
The community is reeling from this tragedy, and many are just trying to find ways to help the victims in their families. A comedian who has Maine roots has come up with an interesting idea, a special show in Portland this week to benefit those affected. News Center's Sarah DeLage tells us about it.
Before every performance, Justin McKinney does his homework, reading the local news and finding out what's happening in the area.
Just as I'm preparing for it, it's like a week before, the news broke about this fire where, the worst one in a generation.
A fire that took the lives of 6 people just beginning their adult lives. David Bragdon Jr., a 27-year-old who lived in the home and worked at nearby pub, the Great Lost Bear, is described by his father as being charming, kind, and a lover of music. Also living in the house was 29-year-old Ashley Thomas, a wedding photographer remembered as a devoted friend and a positive soul. Nikki Finlay was Ashley Thomas's best friend. The 26-year-old lived with Ashley on the 3rd floor of the home and worked at Greenlight Studio, a cafe in Portland. Friends called 25-year-old Chris Conley Miles, as in Miles of Smiles. He was visiting the home on Noyes Street when the fire broke out. 24-year-old Melisha Jackson attended Mount Ararat High School in Topsom. She lived in Portland and worked as a clerk at Rennie's department store on Congress Street. She was also visiting friends at 20 Noyes Street. 29-year-old Stephen Summers was a husband and father of 2 young girls and also served in the Navy. He was visiting friends at the home.
Rob, Cindy, investigators still have not come up with a cause for that deadly fire here on Noyes Street, but the task force is considering ideas to try to prevent it from ever happening again. The Noyes Street property had a history of code violations.
Hey, Pat and Caroline, it has been an agonizing 2.5 months waiting for this investigation to conclude. And tonight, parents of the fire victims tell us that they are simply trying to process the news that they got from fire officials earlier today. The parents of fire victim Ashley Thomas confirmed to us the news from fire investigators that this fire has been ruled accidental. They were told that the fire is believed to have started outside of the house on the porch. They're told it was because of improper disposal of a smoking material and that it started inside of some sort of a bucket on the porch next to a couch.
As we first reported last night, that fire was an accident. Good evening, I'm Rob Caldwell.
And I'm Cindy Williams. It happened during the early morning hours of November 1st in an apartment building on Noyes Street. New details were revealed in a news conference today. News Center Sarah DeLage was there. She joins us now live from Noyes Street with the latest. Sarah.
Well, Rob, Cindy, investigators say that fire started in one of those tall plastic containers where you throw cigarette butts. You see them in public smoking areas all the time. They are designed for that purpose, but in this case, it was being used improperly. The container was sitting on the wooden floor of the front porch, and it was placed next to combustible materials like recyclables and furniture.
The city of Portland is taking legal action against Gregory Nisbet. He is the landlord who owns the house on Noyes Street where 6 people died in a fire.
The city has been trying to get him to address safety violations at another rental property on Dartmouth Street. News Center Sarah DeLage joins us now with more on that. Sarah?
Pat, Cindy, the city did a follow-up inspection of the properties at 186 and 188 Dartmouth Street yesterday. They found that 186 Dartmouth Street was in compliance, but there are still safety concerns at 188. The city sent Nisbet a letter on January 20th after an inspection found multiple violations. There was no fire alarm system, bedrooms lacked a secondary means of escape, and there was trash and debris piling up inside.
We're learning today that in 2014, the Portland Fire Department decided to stop what's called proactive routine inspections for apartment buildings with 3 or more units. Instead, they decided to focus on high-risk properties such as nursing homes, schools, or buildings with existing violations. Portland Fire Chief Jerome Lemoria says that the fire department would not have inspected that building on Noyes Street anyway because that property was only supposed to have 2 units inside of it.
Pat, Cindy, you know, just behind me, you can see the pile of rubble. It's unrecognizable. And after talking to residents this morning, it's clear that this tragedy affected their lives in so many ways. Emotions were running high as they all recalled the events that happened on November 1st. Now, for the past 4 months, neighbors have had a constant reminder of that deadly fire. A tragedy that, as we said, left 6 young people dead. Today, as the walls came down, residents and nearby business owners stopped to take pictures. Many of them became very emotional as they remembered both the victims and that tragic story which unfolded here. Now, some hope that with the building now gone, they could start to heal, but others feel it will take much longer to move on.
It's been hard to look at it, just knowing what happened there and just seeing the fire every day is kind of hard.
It's been a horrible reminder every day of the 6 young people that were killed in this fire.
The investigation continues into Maine's deadliest fire in decades. The Cumberland County District Attorney says there has been no decision yet on whether charges will be filed against the landlord of the Noyes Street property in Portland, where 6 people died in a fire in November.
This comes after a deputy chief for the Portland Fire Department told city councilors that charges are likely. The DA held a news conference today to clarify just where the investigation stands. News Center Sarah DeLage was there and joins us now with more on that. Sarah.
Pat, Cindy, DA Stephanie Anderson says those comments were very premature. She says her office has piles of evidence and a lot of work ahead before it can move forward with any criminal charges. Anderson held the press conference along with investigators from the state fire marshal's office. She confirms that she met with investigators from the fire marshal's office as well as the Portland Fire Department and Police Department last Friday, but says it was only to get a sense of where the investigation was. She showed us a binder several inches thick full of reports as well as 6 different discs with photos and videos. Anderson says much of that evidence still needs to be reviewed and carefully to decide whether landlord Gregory Nisbet is criminally responsible for the 6 deaths.